welcome. It's a pleasure to be able to connect with you in this way, whether you're listening as these words are being spoken or whether you're listening a bit later to a recording. For me, this is an opportunity to respond to the interests and concerns that you have, both as individuals and collectively. So very often I will be choosing questions that seem to me to have quite a wide appeal. That doesn't mean that you can't ask specific questions, because often from a specific question I can draw a general truth. And that gives me an opportunity to communicate some of the truths, some of the possibilities and potentialities that are there for you as humanity at this time. Feel free then to ask whatever feels important to you. As I speak, I'll be connecting with all of you, each one of you who's listening. Again, whether that's now as these words are spoken live, or whether to a recording, connecting with each of you in whatever way is appropriate for you, without intruding upon your personal energy field, but where you experience, where you sense an openness to connect more consciously with me, then I will be allowing my light to blend with yours in ways that are designed to assist you to continue moving forward on your chosen path of enlightenment. Let me also add that from my point of view, we are all already connected. This gives me an opportunity to move into one of the questions that's already been posted up. And this is a question about the intervention of angels and the laws that govern your time here on earth. As physical beings, none of you are immortal. As beings, you are immortal. You are timeless. But your time here on earth is governed by many circumstances and conditions that for the most part are outside of your conscious awareness. And so both for yourself and for those you love, the timing of your leaving the earth and the manner of your leaving this particular life are mysterious. So of course you ask about these things. This then leads me back to what I was saying about being already connected with you. For one way of unraveling the mystery of what permits one person to live a long, long life and another to live all too briefly from your point of view, one way of understanding that is to appreciate that you as individuals exist at many different levels simultaneously. So that the human self that you are and the human selves that you love, that are important to you in your life, these are just portions of a much greater beingness. And what governs your time here on earth is not just the human aspect of your being, but all of that beingness. So at other levels of that beingness, you and I, we're so well known to one another, we're totally connected. In certain ways, you can even say that I, that is to say Sananda, the being of light that I am, I'm really just a part of you, part of the immense consciousness that is all of humanity. So not only do you exist at other levels, it's also true to say that as an individual, much that gives you a sense of identity is actually an illusion. That you're all connected with one another much more than seems apparent when you look at your individual human bodies. This then means that when you consider how it is, as the question inquires, that one lives long and is saved perhaps from a sudden and unexpected and untimely death, while another is not, that this mystery may ultimately be outside of your capability to understand at this time. Now, that's not a criticism of you. It's simply that the largeness of your being is not readily accessible when you're in human form, and therefore mysteries remain. So I would suggest a useful approach here is, rather than being concerned about the insoluble mystery of why one leaves the earth time at the age of 25 and another leaves the earth time at the age of 95, rather than seeking to unravel that, to use a different sort of approach. Not that these things are unknowable, I shall come back to this shortly, but to move into a relationship of deep trust with yourself, first of all, to allow that you as a being are of immense beauty, that you live in a universe of immense beauty, that some profoundly beautiful purpose is being worked out in your relationship with the universe, and your relationship with the universe is made up not only of your own individual experience, but of the experiences of those you love, those you share this time, this planet with, so that all of you are engaged in a wonderfully complex dance of relationships with one another. From that place of trust in the innate beauty of your being and the innate beauty of the universe, it begins to be possible, at least potentially, to meet the pain of loss, whether that is your own demise, or more probably, the loss of someone whom you love, to meet that with perhaps not an equanimity, for there is no point in pretending that losing someone you love is not a painful experience. It is. But from a place where understanding can grow. In other words, that rather than a ready-made answer landing on your lap out of the ether, which sometimes might be nice to have, what you're opening up to is the possibility of understanding emerging gradually from within yourself, so that it might be that you could say to yourself, when you confront the loss of someone special in your life, I don't know why this has happened. It makes no sense to me right now. But I trust that at some point, in some way, maybe over a period of time, an understanding will emerge. For now, my understanding is that there is some good reason being served here. What that reason is, I don't know. What that reason is, perhaps I can't even imagine at this point. But maybe some good reason is being served. If you're able to come to that place, it begins to exert an effect upon your energy field. some of the stretching of the energy field or the compressing that comes about through anguish, through suffering, that gives rise to suffering too. Some of that relaxes. You might imagine the energy field as having a sort of elasticity to it. And that when you experience pain, that elasticity is either stretched too far or squeezed up too much. That's a simplification, of course. In reality, it's quite complex. But let's stay with this simple version. Now, as you find ways of using that innate trust to open the door to understanding, you are relaxing the energy field. The energy field is then more receptive to that understanding to come in. As I say, it may come in quite gradually, by degrees. So that's my suggestion. Recognize, first of all, that you are a complex being in a complex universe. And therefore it is no fault of yours if you can't find answers to every question straight away. But from that, move to a sense that fundamentally the universe is on my side. This is a loving universe and I'm a loving being. Or as I put it earlier, you're a beautiful being in a beautiful universe. Therefore, some good purpose is being served in these events, even though I experience them as very painful. And that trust then opens you up to begin to receive the understanding. Now that gives me an opportunity to bring in another question that was asked, and that's all about the causes of illness. How do people become ill? What sort of imbalance, or is it an imbalance at all? And how can we heal ourselves? Asks Elizabeth. So as I've suggested, if you think of yourself as being an energy field, and your energy field, if it's under stress, stretched or compressed, there's going to be a tendency for illness or dis-ease to arise. Now, at this point, there are several really important things that I want to say. When you start investigating the causes of illness, whether it's your own illness or the illness of another, and we start talking about the kind of things I'm going to be talking about shortly, it's very easy to get into judgment, to say, I or you should really be able to sort yourself out. You've got into an imbalance you shouldn't have, you should get back into balance, and so on. What do you mean by it, by getting ill? Because I'm going to suggest that you are ultimately responsible for your own dis-ease. But, and this is a really, really, really important but, that does not mean that you are at fault if you find yourself ill. If you start moving into the area of finding fault, whether it's with yourself or with another, you are simply locking that imbalance or that dis-ease in. You're making it more difficult. So start from a place, really get this, that you and everyone else on the planet, you and everyone else are doing the very best that you can in every moment. Get rid of fault. You don't need it, it doesn't help. It's not your fault, it's not anybody else's fault. However, we can then move on. Once you've really got that, take it on board, we can then move on to consider the underlying causes of dis-ease or illness. So is there an absence of alignment? As a generalization, yes, that's going to be true. Something else to bear in mind, however, is that you are physical beings, and your physical bodies are not designed to last forever. Sometimes you might feel as if it would be really nice if it did last for considerably longer than it does. Other times you might feel differently. But whatever way you feel about it, as the human body is currently constituted, you're really only designed to have a few decades in relationship with this particular body, and of course it's renewing itself throughout those decades. So again, we come back to the way in which the different levels at which you exist will have different priorities, different governances, different rules applying, and so on. So that, for instance, for your soul, it's neither here nor there, actually, how long you live on earth. It really doesn't mind. From your soul's point of view, a short life might be every bit as effective as a long life. Doesn't make a lot of difference. Your soul does want you to have a joyful life. That's certainly true. But the length of your life, not really very important. For you, of course, it might be very important. It probably is. In all probability, your wish is to live a long, healthy and happy life, and I wish that for you too. If it is in accordance with, so now we move into other factors that are important to bring in before we move back to talking about being in alignment or out of alignment. Because if we're talking about being out of alignment, and I've suggested that is very relevant to dis-ease, we need to find out what it is you're out of alignment with. So, you're existing in lots of different levels. At those different levels, different priorities, different laws pertain, and so on. And you are doing your best to, as an individual human being, to fulfill. Now we come back to bring in the question that Louise asks about angelic intervention. You're doing your best to fulfill a plan, let's call it, that you came into this world with. And that plan may or may not contain detailed information about the length of your life, the state of your health, and so on. So that within the context of an individual life, what you may find is that someone is totally aligned with their life purpose, but actually, nevertheless, is experiencing ill health. For example, someone might be born with, let us say, cerebral palsy. And that would have an influence upon the whole of the life that is lived. Could one say of that person, you are out of alignment, that's why you have cerebral palsy? No. That would be inappropriate, unhelpful, and in very important ways, completely untrue. Because here is a person who has, before coming into this life, elected to have a certain condition, and there could be very many reasons indeed for choosing that condition. So we'll leave the reasons to one side for now. That might be something to explore on another occasion. But here is a person who's elected to have a lifelong condition, quite difficult to manage, but chosen for reasons, as I say, that we're not going into right now, and living that life as best she or he can, learning what is to be learnt, giving what is to be given, developing what is to be developed, and all of that might be done in a very high degree of alignment with the purpose that brought that individual to earth. So when we talk of out of alignment and ill health, then all of that needs to be borne in mind. And when I spoke of some element of misalignment being relevant to ill health, predominantly I'd be talking about much less chronic conditions. So let us stay with something really simple and rather familiar. A cold. It's not a big deal, but you don't enjoy having it. It happens sometimes. Perhaps it can feel as if it happens at random, or it happens in winter or whatever. But in this universe, nothing happens at random. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a meaning. But using the cold a person might catch as a way of talking about being out of alignment. It's a simple example, and it doesn't carry too much emotional weight with it. What might we say in relationship to alignment? You may have noticed that if you've had a cold, at least on occasion, if you look back, you'll find that you overrode some little warning signs, little signals that your body was giving you. Perhaps you were working too hard, not resting enough, and so your immune system gets a bit lowered, and you find yourself susceptible, and the germs that you would normally treat like water from a duck's back take hold for a little while, and you get a cold. It's a very simple, familiar example of how, yes, there can be a kind of misalignment. That is to say, your higher self is saying to you, rest, don't work quite so hard. You're getting a bit low in terms of your energy. And you say, no, I must do this. It's important. It really matters. But somewhere inside, should really be listening to that voice. So recognize that that can be helpful to you, can be relevant, that you can learn. I'm sure all of you do this already, but you can learn to get better and better and better at it, to watch out for those little warning signs that your body gives you, that it's saying, you're a bit out of alignment here. Now, within the context that we have today, I'm keeping this fairly simple. There's much more that could be said. So just to recap, I'm really talking about two kinds of level here. So there's the level where being out of alignment is not relevant to the context of an individual human life. And I use as an example a chronic condition like cerebral palsy. You can have that condition and be absolutely beautifully in alignment. And then I used a more local, temporary kind of condition, simple thing like a cold, which can be a useful way of illustrating how you can slide a little bit out of alignment with yourself, and your body then responds by making you take the rest that you weren't taking, essentially. That's what it guides you to do. But whether you're talking about being in alignment or being out of alignment, there is no blame. You are a perfect being doing the best you can. So that when you look at whatever condition you might be experiencing, or whatever conditions others around you might be experiencing, first of all, recognize that the reasons for what you're experiencing or what they're experiencing, as I was saying earlier, may be hidden from you or only partially visible. And that if for no other reason, it is therefore very wise to abstain from any kind of judgment. There are other reasons it's really, really important to abstain from judgment. It helps you enormously. It opens you up. Not least because when you abstain from judgment, your love easily expands out to help both yourself and others to move back into alignment if there's been a slip from alignment. It all works beautifully when you let go of judgment. So a little bit more, just a tiny bit more about this question of alignment. I spoke in broad terms of your energy field, and really all I said about it is that it's elastic. But it can be quite convenient to consider, as is implicit in Elizabeth's question, the difference between different layers or aspects of the energy field. So you have physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy, spiritual energy. These are convenient ways of dividing up aspects of the energy field because they behave in different ways. And one of the causes for physical illness will often be where those different aspects of the emotional body have become entangled. So that you can find, for example, at the site of a physical injury, something simple, a bruise, let's say, that very often you'll find to some degree there's an entanglement of the emotional body and the mental body at the site of the physical injury. With something minor like a bruise, it will often disentangle itself quite easily. But injuries which are not necessarily physically serious of themselves, but which carry a lot of emotional weight for you, these may be more slow to disentangle. You may find that at the site of an emotionally freighted injury, other injuries may tend to occur. So that's an example of how that being out of alignment within your own energy field, out of alignment with yourself, can have an impact on your physical health. Okay, we need to come to a close for now. Thank you for being there. Thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure to speak to you and to connect with you.